yeah. Take a seat, guys. Take a seat. Take a seat. As you are taking a seat, can you give it up one more time for the band? That was amazing. Let's go. Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. This is the last Wednesday for youth until September. So every volunteer has been here this year working, putting in so much time and effort. The band's been incredible. So like the loudest, we have leaders in the group right now. So can you guys give them the absolute biggest round of applause? They're here because they love you. They're here because they love Jesus, and Jesus has made a massive impact in their life. So that's incredible. Today we're speaking about the subject, I'm going to jump right into it, called Headspace. And if you guys don't know what Headspace is, that's totally okay. I'm going to go over it real quick. So Headspace is really two definitions. I have a container out here. You guys are probably wondering, what in the world is a Tupperware container up here? I stole my wife's. She might get mad at me, so I'm going to try not to lose it. However, Tupperware container is here for a reason. There's two definitions to Headspace. The first definition to Headspace is something called, is basically if I had contents in the bottom of this container, like water or something of that nature, the space between the water and the top of the container is called Headspace. That's the first definition of it. The second definition of Headspace is what we're talking about today, and really has nothing to do with this container, except for the fact if we picture this as like a head, right? Like a brain or a head or a mind. So the second definition is like a Hey Arnold's head, right? Like, y'all don't know who a Hey Arnold is. My leaders do, yeah. Y'all don't know who a Hey Arnold is. You do? That's it. Oh. So if this is your head, the informal definition of Headspace is basically your mind or your mindset. Your mind or your mindset. So if I used Headspace like if I was at a spelling bee and they're like, spell Headspace, we'll use it in definition. If I was using it in a negative way, I would say something along the lines of, hey, I'm in a really bad place. I'm struggling mentally. I'm in a bad headspace. If I flipped it and used it in a positive light, I might say something along the lines of, hey, I'm doing great. My energy's awesome. I'm in a really positive headspace. So you guys get the concept, right? There's negative and both negative and positive headspaces. My high school teachers might have said something along the lines of, man, he doesn't have much going up there. He has zero headspace, right? That's what my high school teachers would have probably told me. Nonetheless, we're talking about negative and positive headspaces. When we're doing this, I want to give you guys a few examples of what that would look like as far as negative and positive headspaces. So I'm just going to bring some things that I've been talking with high schoolers about over the last week as I've been thinking about this concept of headspace. And this isn't meant to be insensitive. This might be something that I have dealt with, maybe you guys have dealt with. But what tends to happen as we're talking about headspace, if we picture this being your mind, kind of just give you guys an example here. I'm going to pop this on here. So thinking about negative and positive headspaces, there's something like thoughts that are placed inside your brain. So at a very young age, if you think of a 1-year-old, like my 1-year-old, you don't have to force them to walk, right? What do? They fall, they stumble, they get back up. They don't care anybody who's watching. They fall, they stumble, they scrape their knees, they don't care, they do it again. But as we get older, through time, over and over again, we get these thoughts placed inside of us, whether from our teachers or from our peers or from our friends or from our family members, and they start to breed either positive or negative thoughts inside of our head or head space. So let me give you an example. So I was decently good at sports growing up. So I am now a trainer, right? So I was decently good at sports. Someone way back when I was probably like 4, 5, 6, whatever, they gave me this thought that I was good at sports. So what happens? I get a positive thought. Hey, you know what? I am okay at sports. Maybe I'm going to pursue that. Now, I think of the thought, I'm good at sports. I pursue sports more. I keep telling myself over time, hey, I'm great at sports. I went on to play high school baseball. I went on to play college baseball. I'm now a trainer. So all these things are reoccurring over and over again to give me a positive headspace around sports. Now, there's a reason I am not up here on the worship team, and you will never hear me saying, a note because I'm pretty sure I don't even know what notes are and I can't hear them. So if you guys are ever taking an Instagram story, I was taking an Instagram story. This was 2 weeks ago when Rachel Mack was here. Who was here when Rachel Mack was here? She was incredible, right? She was incredible. I was taking an Instagram story, so I had my phone out, taking an Instagram story. And what I tend to do if I'm taking a video of worship is I make sure I stop singing. However, I forgot to stop singing. So I'm taking a video of Rachel Mack. I'm singing along with Rachel Mack. My wife gets a hold of my phone. She's like, oh, you took a video of Rachel Mack today. Let me listen. You hear me in the background like screeching. Like I sound like I'm a dog choking on a chicken bone, right? Like, oh, right? And Rachel Mack in the background. So I'm like, okay, delete all of those. But I promise you, from a very young age, someone put in my mind, whether it was someone put in my mind like, hey, you're not very good at singing, like, chuck that to the wayside. I have never, so someone told me I wasn't good at singing. From that day on, I kept telling myself, I'm not good at singing. I suck at singing. I'm not going to pursue anything in music. I tried playing I went to a guitar session like twice, and immediately I was like, no, I suck at this. I can't do it. Right? So you guys kind of get the concept. You have positive thoughts and negative thoughts. And what I'm worried about is so this is when we're going to get somewhat sensitive on sensitive subjects, but that's okay. Maybe someone gives you a thought like, hey, way back when, this is true for a lot of my clients that I deal with in training, is maybe someone gave them a thought a long time ago like, hey, you're fat, right? Maybe someone called you fat. So this negative thought gets embedded in their brain from a very young age. Hey, I'm fat. And then over time, everything just starts. Maybe someone else calls them fat, right? Maybe someone else says, maybe they start thinking to themselves, you know what? Maybe I am fat. I don't want to, who cares? I'm just going to give up anyways. I'm never going to pursue sports. I'm too fat for that. I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm too fat for that, right? We could do this over and over again. Maybe you love art and you try art one day and someone says, hey, that's not very good, right? They implant that thought into your brain. Your art's not very good. And then over time, you just keep getting more and more and more of those negative thoughts. Let me give you an example of real high schoolers who I talked with on social media, and I said, hey, this is what I wrote to them on Instagram. I'm preparing a message for next week called Headspace. How do you speak to yourself? I often catch myself speaking to myself in a negative way, such as you're stupid or you can't do this. This is what I'm saying to them. And I said, can you relate to that? This is the response. Most of the time I speak to myself in a very belittling way that I'm not proud of, but I can't seem to not do it. I've always been critical of myself, whether it's about a test score, how I performed in sports, a competition, how I look. Another person said, well, everybody else seems to understand that they're fine. I must be pretty stupid if I can't. I'm never going to be successful. I don't believe in myself. I expect the worst to happen. So over time, what I'm worried about is that over time, all these thoughts start to get embedded into our brain and create a circular downward motion. And then all of a sudden, we're in this dark place of I can't. I'm not good enough. This is tough. I'm not going to pursue this. And let me be clear. I don't want to create a delusional, like, you're the best, you're awesome, you're good at everything. Because if I told myself I was great at music, I would still suck at music, right? As far as singing, right? There's other things that maybe in the music organization I might be able to do. So I don't want to create a delusional, but what I'm worried about is that these negative thoughts, because they have impacted me in this way, are stopping you from pursuing what your heart and what God's calling you to do. Negative thoughts in your brain are starting to stop you from pursuing what you think God has placed in your heart to pursue in your purpose. So although we could talk about how to talk positive and how to be awesome and how to pour into you, and that's what I kind of want to pursue a little bit, but I want to talk about how we speak to ourselves today. If some of us, like myself, if I talk to you guys oftentimes how I talk to myself in a negative way, you'd be like, bro, you're being a real jerk face to me. And so we need to start talking to ourselves in a more positive light, like you can do this, and you can be great, and you can pursue God's purpose, and you are loved, and God has an awesome plan for you. I want to give you a small example of what that looks like from when my daughter was very little on this video I'm going to show you. This is very extreme. We're not going to work out talking in the mirror, but I do just want to give you an illustration that I think is pretty funny from when she was really little. So if you guys can run that video for me. Right, so you guys get it. We're often talking to ourselves in a negative way, and it would be so great if the rest of our lives we all could plant a chip inside of our brain and we only talk to ourselves in a positive way. But that's just not the case, is it? It's not the case. We're always going to be dealing with baggage, things that we've dealt with in the past, negative thoughts that we have behind us. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm not the guy who wakes up in the morning. Maybe you think this about me. I'm not the guy who wakes up in the morning thinking to himself like, oh, wow, jumps out of bed. This is awesome. I love it. I can't wait. No, I wake up about 4:20 every day. Don't laugh. 4:19. I'm just kidding. So when this is me in the morning. You ready? This is me. Alarm goes off. Maybe you guys can relate to this. Oh gosh. Snooze. Oh, I got at least 7 more minutes left. Oh, alarm goes off again. Why do I do this to myself? This is awful. I would say that the first 5 minutes of my day are the worst 5 minutes of my day. Can anybody relate with that? I don't even like taking naps because that means I have to wake up twice in a day. So I just don't do that to myself, right? I only want to wake up once, right? So if you guys can understand that's where I'm coming from. But I think that if we can get the Word of God into us in a positive light and start thinking to ourselves in a positive way, we can maybe have a slight perspective change. You know, in the beginning, the band played an awesome song called Vacation, and I just want to be able to walk around with that mindset. Like, from now on, when I wake up in the morning, I just want to have my perspective change where, like, that song comes on, right? And I'm, like, sleeping, and then all of a sudden, the song just goes off. And I'm just like...
Hey, I'm on vacation every single day, cause I love my occupation. Hey, I'm on vacation. If you don't like your life, then
shut up. That's what I want. I want my perspective to change to the point where, like, everything's just exciting and I'm happy and I can't wait for my day to start. But it's so unrealistic, right? Like, I can remember being in high school, like, driving to school and just be like, oh, why do I do this to myself? This is awful. I'm going to be late. I know I actually went always late my high school year, so just a little bit about me. Like, oh, dude, why? This is so stupid. I just want to have that perspective change in my head where, like, I'm driving on the school, I get to school, and my perspective changed, and it's like that vacation song comes on. It's always vacation in my life, right? Like, I just want, like, song comes on, and I'm just like, oh, yeah.
I'm on vacation every single day, cause I love my occupation. I'm on vacation.
Right? Like, I just want that. I want my perspective, my mindset to change in such a positive way that I can just live. Forget about all these negative thoughts. And I can just live in a positive light. I can imagine being tough if you don't love, like, let's say, for example, you don't love working out. And it's tough, and it's hard. And working out is just something that's close to my heart. I've been doing it my whole life. But could you imagine, like, if you just had the mindset of, like, taking care of yourself, hey, I'm going to from now on, I'm going to the gym, right? I'm going to go to the gym, and you don't want to. And, hey, listen, even sometimes I'm like, dude, I got to go to the gym right now. I got, like, 42 other things to do. I'm All right, here we go. But could you imagine if your perspective changed? Something inside you switched and you were just all positive and like you went to the gym and that song was just going in your head like it's vacation at the gym, right? Like what
Every single day, every single day. Every single day, every single day.
right? Could you imagine if that perspective was that was your new mindset of everything's positive, everything's great. And I don't want to be delusional because we all have these negative thoughts. That's not the case. But I want to give you an example of someone in the Bible who is going through a very tough time. Probably worse than maybe we'll ever experience, or maybe not, but a very tough time. Mentally, physically, I'm out of breath. I swear I work out. Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, he was going through a very tough time, and his perspective changed. His perspective changed. So I'm going to read you a couple verses here. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. We're going to talk about the Bible today, yes. So they're going to put it on the screen, and I'm going to read a couple verses. It says, follow along with me if you can't. I must go on boasting. Although there is nothing to be gained, I will go on to visions and revelations from the Lord. I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. Whether it was in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows. And I know that this man, whether in the body or apart from the body, I do not know, but God knows, was caught up to paradise and heard inexpressible things, things that no one is permitted to tell. I will boast about a man like that, but I will not boast about myself, except about my weaknesses. Even if I should choose to boast, I would not be a fool because I would be speaking to the truth, but I refrain so no one will think more of me than is warranted by what I do or say. I love 2 Corinthians chapter 12 because it literally tears apart the American culture and high school's viewpoint of like, hey, I'm just going to boast about everything I have. Right? Hey, my parents got an awesome car. My parents got a sweet house, and they bought me an awesome car for my 16th birthday, and I got the blue check mark on Instagram, right? Like, whatever it may be, 2 Corinthians flips that thought process of boasting about yourself and who you are on its head. And just to give you a little bit of background, because I think it's important for 2 Corinthians, is the Apostle Paul, if you don't know who the Apostle Paul is, he was a religious leader who was going to kill Christians. Before he became a Christian, he was going to kill Christians. Let me say that again. If you think you screwed something up and God don't love you anymore, this man was going to kill Christians. God saved him onto a road to Damascus when he was going to kill Christians. And from that point, he's now been serving God his entire life. Multiple times, 4 times, the Apostle Paul seen Jesus. First time was on the road to Damascus, knocked him off his horse. He was blinded for 3 days. This time in 2 Corinthians, God called him up to heaven. Called him up to heaven. Hey, you're going to come to paradise and see what heaven's like. So you can imagine that Paul could boast about this. I can imagine like me being in now a ministry position, which I'm super grateful for. I could imagine that might make me a little prideful. Like God pulls me up to heaven. Me and my man Mark are having a conversation about, hey, what do you think we should do next week in youth? And he's like, I think we should do it. And I'm like, well, have you gone to heaven? And he's like, no. Well, I'm like, we're going to go with what I think, right? Like that's the type of conversation that we could be having. So he says, I'm not going to boast in that. I'm not going to boast in who I am or what I've done. I'm going to boast in my weakness. Why? What? Why would you boast in your weakness? Here's why. Let me tell you. In verse number 7, it says, or because of these surpassing great revelations, therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. He says, in order to keep me from being conceited, in order to keep me from being prideful and boasting in myself, I was given a thorn in the flesh. Now, a thorn in the flesh kind of to me sounds like a little picker bush. You know, like you go to reach for a bush and like a little thorn pokes you. That's not the case at all. In the Greek, what it's talking about is like a full-on dagger, right? You would like kill somebody with this dagger. And it says that God allowed Satan to give Apostle Paul, who he just brought up to heaven with, a dagger in his side. This is a little extreme. Maybe you have something. What's your thorn in the flesh? What's your dagger in your side? I'm sure you guys have had multiple things happen in your life where something could feel like a dagger in your side. Can anybody think of something where they're going through? Like, think real quick about what's your thorn in the flesh that you're dealing with. If you don't have one, well, you're probably not alive. But there's probably something, or maybe you're not a human, but there's probably something in your life right now that you feel like a dagger's in your side, and it's just never going away. The thing about a dagger is, have you guys ever done like too much ab workout or like something like that? If you just go to the gym one day, do like 1,000 sit-ups, it is gonna be hard to breathe for like a week. You're gonna be, right? Like, I can't breathe. You can't even cough. This dagger in the side, Paul's saying, it's just nonstop. It's tormenting me day and night, nonstop. It's not like something hurts 1 second and then it's gone the next. No, it is a dagger. It's a thorn in the flesh. What is that thorn in the flesh for you? I'm gonna be honest with you guys. So probably my biggest thorn in the flesh that I've been dealing with for a long time, real transparent. I'm gonna get real transparent with you if that's okay. Maybe some of you can relate with this. So when my daughter was first born, I can remember this. I was driving on Rochester Road, and I was driving down Rochester Road, and it was a great day out, but all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe. My chest started getting heavy. I'm like, I can't breathe. I think I'm having a heart attack. So I have my doctor on speed dial because he's the man, Dr. John, he's the man. So I pull over. I remember today, Rochester Road, Chipotle, where Vitamin Shop is. You don't know what I'm talking about? Y'all know where Chipotle is. Don't lie. So Chipotle is a spot better than Qdoba. Don't hate. Yes. So I pull into Chipotle, and I literally can't breathe. I think I'm having a heart attack. I called Dr. John. I'm like, Dr. John, man, I can't breathe. I don't know if I should go to the hospital. Like, he's like, what's going on? Do you have pain? He's asking me all these questions. I'm like, no pain in my shoulder, no pain in my left arm. He's like, bro, I think you're having a panic attack. He's like, panic what? I'm like, panic what? Like, I seen panic room, but I've never heard of panic attack. And he's like, have you ever dealt with something called anxiety? What? Anxiety? No, I don't know no anxiety. What's that? He's like, what were you thinking about when this happened? And I was like, honestly, man, I was contemplating my daughter. Like, she's new to our family. A lot of financial things go behind having a kid. I don't know if you all had kids, but they take half your money, if not more. So a lot of financial things. Like, I was going through transitions in fitness and business and life, and me and my wife were learning to deal with our kids. And as great as it is for me to be talking in the mirror, telling my daughter to be, hey, have the mindset of you're awesome and you're the best and you got a sick jab and you got a nasty cross, like all those things, I wasn't doing it myself. I was struggling mentally to put myself in a positive, because I was just thinking about the negative things, the baggage, the negative things. And from that point, that was about 6 years ago, I have been on a never-ending battle mentally of dealing with these positive and negative thoughts. And that dagger in my side, I've had 3 surgeries. I've had intestines taken out of my body. I've been in the hospital for 2 months at a time. I missed most of my senior year of high school. I got stitches to prove it. I got all that. The most thorn in the flesh I've ever had to deal with is right here. It is a struggle. The reason is because nobody sees it. It's hard to express what you're going through. Half the time you get into when I found out, I couldn't breathe. I got to that point, right? The thorn in the flesh was, Dr. John, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. So this is an interesting conversation, and this was me right here. This is me right here. The next verse says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. 3 times. You know how many times I've been on my knees being like, God, I got this thing mentally that I'm battling through every single day. Take it away. And when I'm in that prayer now, I hear God say this to me, which is what he said to the Apostle Paul. In verse 8, which is interesting, it said that Apostle Paul pleaded 3 times What else happened 3 times that was kind of like somewhat important in the Bible? Peter, Jesus. Hey, we're here talking about Jesus. You got it. I wonder if this is not in the Bible, so don't take this at my word. It's just my opinion. I wonder if the Apostle Paul prayed to Jesus, hey, take this thing away from me. Take this thing away from me. Take this thorn in the flesh away from me. And on the 3rd time, he realized, oh, man, I'm begging God to take this pain away from me to the same God who died on the cross for me. And this next verse is just life-changing and has been life-changing for my own daily walk. He said, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest upon me. He says, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. The first time I read this, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I kind of got upset. To me, this is like, you're starving and a guy comes up to you and be like, hey, bro, like, I love you, you're good. Like, my grace is enough. Like, no, I'm starving here. This is tough. But I started to really dissect this verse and what it has meant to me. Maybe it can mean the same thing to you. Is he says, my power is made perfect in weakness. The most time I felt powerful in the last 6 years of my life is when I have just let my negative thoughts not be delusional, be like, God, and I just turn them over to God. God, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm working with. This is what's on my mind. This is what emotionally is going on. And I just turn it all over to him. And I have felt, and maybe you guys have felt this the most in your life, is the most time that I find the most confidence in Jesus and in this verse is when I am at my very last end of this thorn in the flesh that I'm dealing with, and God's power starts to intercede and work in a way that is way more powerful than I could ever imagine. It's sort of like if you're hitting a bench press. If you guys have ever done a bench, I'm giving way too many fitness. I'm so sorry. Me and Kyle trained this morning. Kyle's a man. So if you're hitting a bench press and you're on your back hitting the bench press and it's super heavy and you can't get it, this is kind of what it feels like to me. God's just like, hey, bro, I got it for you, right? And he gives you a spot, but he doesn't just give you a spot. He lifts that whole weight. But the only way you're going to get there, and I'm going to finish with this. The only way you're going to get there is a couple-fold. Number one, you have to turn it over to God. That mental battle, the headspace, both negative and positive, you have to turn it over for God. I'm going to end with this. I promise you that anything that you think is going to give you a more positive outlook or you're going to put you in a better space is not as good as God. I've tried most of them. I promise you God is going to be able to put you in a more confident, more loving space. And the way you do that is, number one, giving everything to him. Number two, by focusing on verses like this, my grace is sufficient for you. My grace is sufficient for you. My grace is sufficient for you. Just start saying that throughout your week, throughout your day. And number three, it's believing the promises of God in the Bible. Listen, people might say, like, you might start having negative thoughts like, you're not loved, right? You're not good enough. You don't have purpose. All these negative thoughts just keep happening throughout your brain. And if we can get to the point where we're actually having faith is believing what God said. You know what God said about you? He said, you do have purpose. He said, nothing can separate you from the love of God. He said, no matter what's going on in your life, that all things work out for God to those that love God and those that are called according to his purpose. So these thoughts can be overbearing and can be a struggle. I want to end with this last verse and we're done, I promise. It says, that is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties, for when I am weak, then I am strong. For Christ's sake, I delight in my weaknesses? What? He's saying, well, I love being in weak spots. I love being in hardships. It's going to make the person who I am. It's going to fine-tune me. It's going to make me better. It's going to make me stronger. It's going to make me draw closer to God. It's going to make me reach out to him and experience what I'm supposed to experience through the Spirit of God. I think that as a youth, as you guys are going into this summer, we're not going to have youth, obviously, but at the same time, coming into the fall, my prayer for you this summer and into the fall is that we can all start working stronger on our mental side, because mentally, if you have your mental side working in a positive light and you're aware of those negative thoughts, you can push against them. You can call them out for what they are. They're lies. They're lies. They're lies. You can do it. You can push towards your purpose. God does love you. You are important. You do have identity. I don't know if this touched anybody, any of you can relate with this. Maybe I'm the only one who relates with a mental struggle, that thorn in their flesh. But just know, guys, that the leaders here, I'm going to be praying for you. We love you. We hope you have an awesome summer. As soon as we're done, we're going to go have some s'mores and celebrate together. And let's close in prayer, guys. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for tonight, for this year of youth. I beg you that we would all be focused more on your love. We are your children. We do not have to live in fear. The Bible says that we can cry out, Abba, Father, and whatever we're going through, you can give us strength in our weaknesses. God, we thank you so much for what you've done. We know that there's nothing as good as you. There's nothing that's going to fulfill us, give us wholeness, and make us feel like we matter as much as you will. We thank you for your Son. It's in his precious name that we pray. Amen.